Former FBI Director James Comey was arraigned in a federal court in Virginia today following repeated calls by President Trump to prosecute him. Comey pleaded not guilty. His lawyer told the judge they would move to quickly dismiss the case, calling it a vindictive and selective prosecution. No cameras were in the court, but you could see Comey's family arriving, including, crucially, his daughter. Remember his daughter, former federal prosecutor Maureen Comey, right there next to her mother. You may remember Maureen Comey helped prosecute the case against Ghislaine Maxwell and was abruptly fired by Trump's DOJ this summer with no explanation. First-time prosecutor Lindsay Halligan, who's never prosecuted a case in her entire life, who was handpicked by Trump to be the U.S. attorney after the existing U.S. attorney was pushed out over his refusal to indict Comey. She was there along with the two prosecutors she added to the case only yesterday, admitting in court they weren't quite up to speed. Quote, "We're just getting our hands around the discovery." One of them saying there's a large amount of discovery. But the judge rejected the prosecution's request for more time and set a trial date for January 5th, if it ever reaches trial. Joyce Vance is former U.S. attorney for the Northern District of Alabama. She worked with James Comey attorney Patrick Fitzgerald at the Department of Justice. Christy Greenberg is former deputy chief of the Criminal Division of the Southern District of New York, and they both join me now. Joyce, first, what did we learn today from the arraignment, if anything?
You know, it's really interesting. The Eastern District of Virginia is the first court that I ever practiced in. I was barred in Virginia as a brand new lawyer. And if you practice in that courthouse, you understand that there is a rocket docket there, that the court moves very quickly. But it was clear that these two prosecutors brought in from the Eastern District of North Carolina didn't get that message in advance of arraignments today. And so they expressed to the judge that they needed more time. And I suspect that he was rather incredulous to get that reaction from them. Pat Fitzgerald, Jim Comey's defense lawyer, was similarly, I think, inclined to make it clear that they did not understand the playing field, suggesting, for instance, that they were ready to go to trial very quickly and that he didn't understand why prosecutors hadn't resolved information about classified evidence before indicting the case.
Chrissy, one thing that we've seen with Trump is to use time and courts in a specific way, right? To draw things out when that's advantageous, to rush things along when that's advantageous, and that in each of these ways you can achieve kind of ends that are independent of the ultimate disposition of the case. And it struck me today as I watched this. I mean, first of all, there is a logistical problem, right? No one in this office is clearly going to prosecute this case because all the line attorneys think it's a travesty of justice. But it also occurred to me that, from the Trump perspective, the whole point is for Comey to be under a cloud, to be indicted, to be facing this prosecution more than it is some final rendering of a verdict.
And we are following what it looks like when Donald Trump calls in an indictment, which he publicly did, a Nixonian admission that he wanted someone he opposes or doesn't like to be charged, James Comey. That individual has been charged, and today it turns to court. It's really happening. The former FBI director appeared in court for the first time since the DOJ indictment. So this is the beginning of the case. This is the beginning, if you will, of the process that leads to a trial if the case holds and isn't tossed before then. He pled not guilty today to the charges of lying to Congress back in 2020 around issues that stem all the way back to Trump's first term. It's a pivotal moment in how this DOJ has continued to bend to things that we know from the public record its own prosecutors and internal staff appointed by Trump thought were wrong, bending to things that they didn't want to do, sometimes having to change staff, Trump ousting the prosecutor there in order to get what he sees as his revenge indictments. Now, Comey's long been the subject of clashing with Trump, all the way back to how he did what he and others saw as his job. And remember, these issues have long already been investigated. They've been reviewed by the DOJ's internal process. They were reviewed by a prosecutor handpicked by Trump, John Durham, and other reviews. None of this, whatever one thinks of it, has ever been seen by any other prior process to involve any misconduct of a criminal nature by James Comey. And yet that is what Trump demanded be charged and what got charged. So we take a look back at a history that goes all the way to Trump's first presidential campaign.
The FBI director told Congress he is investigating
whether there was any coordination between people associated with the Trump campaign and the Russians.
The FBI, James Comey, has been fired.
Look, I've seen the tweet about tapes. Lordy, I hope there are tapes. led to the indictment of dozens of people. The head of Trump's campaign was a grave counterintelligence threat.
Former CIA Director John Brennan and former FBI Director James Comey are under criminal investigation for.
In the Trump era, I've been investigated a lot, audited a lot, and so it's not my first rodeo.
Former FBI Director James Comey has just been indicted on 2 counts of.
There are costs to standing up to Donald Trump, but we couldn't imagine ourselves living any other way. We will not live on our knees.
The last statement there was Comey's video presentation, a kind of video public accounting for what he says are the costs of opposing Donald Trump. And let's call it like it is. Let's be straight. James Comey has been controversial on the left, right, and center for a bunch of stuff. But nobody who honestly has reviewed him or criticized him, and he has been criticized for his leadership, for his approach to the FBI on this and other newscasts. But nobody who seriously looked at this thought there were crimes there. Remember, there's no new evidence that we've seen yet. If they have new criminal evidence, we'll report on it. But all of this goes back to him testifying to Congress about prior activities regarding talking to the press, press releases, press leaks, right? An authorized statement versus a leak. But none of that has ever led, as I remind you, to anything that anyone thought was a crime, including Donald Trump's hand-picked prosecutor, John Durham.
Right. I mean, a few things struck me today. One is we still don't know what the false statements are. I mean, that
As
was
they've
one of the
raised,
things
yes.
that Pat Fitzgerald said. He's like, I mean, I've never seen an indictment where you charge a false statement and we're all guessing about what the false statement is. Pat Fitzgerald said, I still don't know who person 1 and person 3 are. I've had no substantive conversations with the defense until yesterday. So Lindsay Halligan, basically the insurance lawyer, kind of came in on a Monday. By Thursday, she's indicting the case. And then, you know, 2 weeks go by, she hasn't talked to the defense at all. And she kind of punted this thing to these 2 junior prosecutors who clearly don't know what's going on. And, you know, I marvel at the fact that they actually got up in court and said, well, you know, we may need more time for this to go to trial because the case is complex. Complex. She charged it within a matter of days. How is it complex? She clearly was able to wrap her head around it. And, you know, again, this idea that there was a large amount of discovery kind of tells you it is highly likely she didn't review all of those materials between the Monday and the Thursday, right? Like she didn't look at all of this. And to present a case to a grand jury without being fully versed in what those materials are, particularly when you have a memo from career prosecutors that say, not just that we don't think we can obtain a conviction here, but that we think proceeding here would violate DOJ policy and may raise ethical issues.
Right.
I mean, like red flags all over the place. Like you don't present that case to the grand jury without saying, hey, you know what? If I'm a responsible lawyer and I've also never prosecuted a case before, I better take a look at all this and make sure I'm comfortable. But that's clearly not what happened here. She got her marching orders and from Donald Trump, and she followed them. And so, you know, I think regardless of what the timing is, they are going to be exposed here. This is not how you proceed. They are going to be exposed in any number of ways. I don't think it will get to trial. I think this will be dismissed because she's not properly appointed. But I mean, this is going to be a farce.
Yeah, on that point, right? I mean, Patrick Fitzgerald says we're going to file motions clearly around selective and malicious prosecution, for which there's a high bar. But on that point, we got new reporting at the Wall Street Journal tonight that message that Trump posted to Pam Bondi online was meant to be basically a DM that he accidentally posted publicly. He meant to send a private message urging her prosecution of FBI Director James Comey and his other favorite targets. We can't delay any longer. It's killing our reputation. He believed he had sent Bondi the message directly, addressing it to Pam, was surprised to learn it was public. Bondi grew upset, called the White House aides. Trump, who then agreed to send a second post praising her as doing a great job. 5 days after the Saturday evening message, Comey was indicted. It strikes me that that's materially relevant to the filings that Pat Fitzgerald is going to make on Comey's behalf, Joyce, that this is selective and malicious prosecution.
So look, Pat Fitzgerald has seen a lot of lawyers attempt to file selective and vindictive prosecution motions and fails. He understands what the law is here, and the highest standard for people trying to make this argument is actual vindictiveness, that the government had actual vindictiveness towards their client over the exercise of their rights. If this DM isn't evidence of that, I don't know what is. I think that this case will be dismissed on this ground, perhaps on selective prosecution too, which is the suggestion that the government is targeting your client for prosecution that wouldn't be brought against anyone else. In this case, everything the government does makes the defense's motion stronger. You know, the story we were all talking about a couple of days ago about the Trump administration trying to find a couple of beefy FBI agents so they could perp walk Jim Comey into the courthouse in front of the press. Well, that again is evidence of vindictiveness, that they're trying to humiliate this defendant, not prosecute him for legitimate criminal conduct. I don't think this case makes it to trial.
It's getting harder and harder to pretend that the James Comey case is anything other than a political hit job, a petty revenge mission carried out in broad daylight. The whole thing carries Donald Trump's fingerprints, the pressure, the hand-picked loyalists, the public shaming. Now we even know he exposed his own scheme by accident. According to new reporting, that late-night post that Trump made demanding the prosecution of James Comey was never meant for the public. It was supposed to be a private message to Pam Bondi, the Trump ally running the DOJ effort. He literally tried to send her a secret order, "We can't delay any longer, it's killing our reputation." And then when he realized it went public, he panicked and posted another message praising her to clean it up. 5 days later, Comey faced indictment. No legal expert needed to see what was happening there. That moment showed that the President of the United States directly was steering prosecutions through text messages to the DOJ. And the way that the case came together only deepens the concern. Trump forced out the U.S. attorney who refused to indict Comey and replaced him with Lindsay Halligan, an insurance lawyer with zero experience in criminal prosecution. She admitted in court that she wasn't ready, asking for more time because she called it a complex case. The judge basically dismissed that argument, reminding everyone that this was a simple false statement charge, the kind of matter that real prosecutors handle regularly. The reality is, the case has no weight behind it. Every internal DOJ review, including one led by Trump's own prosecutor, John Durham, found no criminal wrongdoing by Comey. Yet Trump kept pushing. He wanted the headline, the spectacle, the image of Comey walking into court. Reports even said he requested a couple of beefy FBI agents to parade Comey before the cameras. That move turned justice into theater and law enforcement into a prop. Meanwhile, people inside the Justice Department, even those appointed by Trump, wanted nothing to do with it. No one agreed to co-sign Halligan's indictment. She sat silent in court while seasoned DOJ veterans representing Comey dismantled her arguments before the hearing even progressed. So, let's call it what it is. A farce. A prosecution built entirely on Trump's personal grudges and executed through backroom messages and public displays of power. Trump's goal revolves around control, not accountability. His interest lies in creating a show trial, not a fair proceeding. His motivation centers on dragging Comey's name through the mud, not uncovering the actual truth. Trump bends institutions until they serve his ego, leaving everyone else to deal with the fallout. But this time, the playbook is wearing thin. The evidence has no strength. The prosecutors appear disorganized, and the leaked Pam Bondi text stands as the clearest proof of all, a direct window into a president using power for personal revenge.